Season 4, episode 4, The Boys has a lot of things I like and some things that, again, I'm just not enjoying this season. As far as what is the best parts about this episode, though, well, it's Homelander and just the pain that he feels and kind of the background of his story and dealing with his childhood trauma back in the facility where he was definitely experimented on with people who did experiments on him per se. You get to see, kind of the emotion behind and how he felt as a kid and the torture and what kind of happened to make him maybe be the villain that we see him here today. And while this episode goes on, he's definitely doing villainy type things. You do get a sense of understanding for Homelander, and in some ways, you can feel kind of connected to Homelander. The drop at the end about from I believe Barbara saying that Bot had a personal psychologist come in and train him to make him have that need of love, the need of love and acceptance and approval, is really understanding of why he's like that. And I think it's a good writing twist to understand where Homelander's character came and how Vought, over all these years, have been able to keep him under wraps. But now he's starting to break through, I feel, that kind of psychological training, and we're getting a more and more, I'd say, scary Homelander who only cares about himself, his son, and that's kind of it. He doesn't need public's approval, and he's just moving forward with his life, and he's kind of overcoming all the struggles he had as a kid, and as an experiment of Vought growing up. I thought Anthony Starr in those scenes acted extremely well. I think they're extremely well written and extremely well played out. Again, you're building on Homelander even more of a way to where you could empathize with him and maybe even sympathize with him, but he's still a villain. Even though he had these terrible things happen to him, he's not the hero of the story at all. The other storyline that I think worked a lot for me, again, Sister Sage and Firecracker and what exactly they're doing. I love the elements to the team they are bringing. They're thinking like three steps ahead of the Butcher and the boys, and it's a different type of villain that the boys have come across, and I enjoy that. Butcher's blackmail tactic didn't work. Um, Sage has them planned like 3 or 4 steps ahead to where by the time the episode ends, Annie January Starlight is beating up Firecracker on live TV, basically showing giving the world the idea that she is a toxic, out of control, super powered individual. And even though throughout laced through that is some real life personal issues, and I think real interesting stories that we're seeing out of Erin Moriarty's acting, with her abortion that she had with Huey, and kind of coming up out of nowhere. Didn't expect that to happen this season, but again, I think this whole angle of just Sister Sage and Sage in general being able to be just the smartest person in the world, and her brain always regenerating and getting better and better and better, is just working very well for me as a quote unquote villain of the season, of the actual antagonist the boys are facing off with this season. And even her character with the deep at the end of love, and how there is a bit of a struggle with always being able to like learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. That what we understand why now we saw that thing at the end of last episode. We see Deep do it at the beginning of this episode, where she basically lobotomizes herself so that she can kind of feel basic and can just not have to think and feel normal. So again, I love that layer of Sister Sage, and I love this whole storyline. And I know some people feel that it's very political in nature, but I'll get onto that later in my review. And finally, the things I wasn't the big fan of. I'm not a big fan of the Huey side story, and definitely not a fan of the Frenchie side story. Not because, for Frenchie at least, because it's a, gay romance story. It just feels like we're adding on little side quest type stories that aren't affecting the main story as a whole, and I feel like these characters have been fleshed out enough that we don't really need to have these extra side stories for them, for Kimiko, for Frenchie, and for Huey. It feels like we're making up circumstances to fill airtime. And in some ways, things like the Sister Stage Firecracker and even the Homelander part feel a little bit less developed as they could be because we're having to devote we devote so much time to both Frenchie and Huey's and Kimiko's side stories here instead of just having it be a main focus on the main plot points. Again, it's not horrible overall. I understand the character motivations. It's just I think with this being season 4, I don't know if we need to see these extra wrinkles of these characters that we've known now for going on 4 seasons. The Huey storyline is definitely the most interesting, trying to get V and really coming to terms with A Train, saying like, "Hey, we're good now." But the Frenchie storyline and Kimiko storyline, like, it just feels like extra tacked on fluff that isn't needed in a season 4 of The Boys, in my personal opinion. As much as I love those two characters overall, the big thing I've seen this week though is this audience response that The Boys is getting. Its audience score for season 4 is like 50%. It's kind of on the hate train. I think there's a lot of people on the Trump side of of politics that think this show is only targeting them now. Like, I'm sorry, the show has always been very politically vocal on things on all sides. I see even this season's things being claimed for to and against people who you consider liberal per se. I see things being commented against the people that are conservative. I've seen pros to both. The great thing about The Boys is it does attack on all sides, but it's never been that subtle. I mean, anybody who's like, man, I don't know why they're bringing politics into this. Like, do you not remember season 2 with Stormfront and the whole the Nazi background for her and wanting to believe she believes she's a superior race and racism that she had back then with that character. Um, there's always been major political and vocal statements that has been seen throughout all the seasons of this, and they do attack from all sides. And I still think they're attacking from all sides. They're talking about bad capitalism. They're talking about corrupt government that only cares about their views per se, and like that. You're getting the super one-sided news coverage from both angles. You're getting like hiding secrets per se and trying to use companies and the public to position yourself power politically. They're using the general population and kind of the bad stance and for both sides, not doing any good for anybody on either side. So with The Boys season 4, the commentary is there, but it's there for all sides. If you're offended because they are maybe being more obviously with the Trump side of things, again, I think we're seeing Homelander get more nuanced content this episode. So he's not as straightforward as a Trump clone as some people thought he might be. I think Sister Sage on side and her intelligence levels there, again, maybe people are upset that it's like a new black female character, so the racism and misogyny is coming back out for them. But Sister Sage is a great complex character. People were upset that Frenchie's now quote unquote having a gay relationship, even though that's been shown throughout the season that he's more bisexual in nature. So I'm confused and upset about all these different you know review bombings and people talking down about The Boys for political reasons, because all this stuff has been in The Boys for all 4 seasons so far. So if you're only noticing it now, it's because you are trying to notice it, or trying to be offended by it, because it's been there since day one. But overall, episode of season 4, I'm going to give a solid platinum rating to. Again, would have been a full diamond if we didn't get those extra little tacked on storylines, but still some really great stuff for season 4 of The Boys. For me personally, I'm loving Sister Sage as a new character, even liking Firecracker now as a new character, and how she's quick on her feet and is showing to be more of a tougher task to take down for The Boys as a whole. And Homelander stuff, like I said, Anthony Starr was great this episode, and if we just had more of that and taken away some of the other story arcs, this would have been a diamond for sure. But tell me your thoughts down below. And yeah, looking forward to Season Boys episode 5 next week. You can check that review on the channel here, so like and subscribe.